Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast. Wonderful to have you with me. Let me start this podcast with a bit of a poem. One of the most famous epic poems in Western literature is Thomas Babington Macaulay's Lays of Ancient Rome. It's an epic poem drawn from the history of Rome, and it has extremely moving portions in it, portions that famous people have memorized and have inspired them, Winston Churchill and others. I won't go through it all, but there is a portion that has particularly lived, and I know it because I read a lot about Churchill, and he spouted it all the time during World War II. It's on my mind now because I used it in my Great Man podcast earlier this morning. But here's a portion that has lived vibrantly in history. To every man upon this earth, death cometh soon or late. And how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? How can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? Now, I want to warn you that in this podcast, I'm going to say something very radical. And I want to tell you up front before I even say it, I am a man of peace. I want peace on earth. I am not a violent man. I am not a warmonger. I want there to be peace. But the lesson of history is that if you do not face violent evil with equal force and a willingness for violence to prevail, a willingness, I'm going to say it bluntly, to die in your cause, you will have greater evil. We know this all the time. Mark Twain said history does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Great words that are being quoted a lot these days. And the reason is that we've already lived through moments like we are living through now with the Ukraine. An empire decides to invade and take territory. People are killed, people are slaughtered, civilians are slaughtered. There's destruction of a peaceful nation. And the deciding factor as to what will ensue is what the surrounding nations, what the rest of the world, what the most powerful nations in the world decide. We had that in 1939. We had that when we saw appeasement by Western leaders in the face of Hitler's onslaught. And there was dithering, and there was hand-wringing, and there was an attempt to do treaties, and there was an attempt to back off from evil. We now know, for example, that many of our Western leaders knew about the concentration camps, knew about Auschwitz and Birkenau, and did not do anything, did not respond, did not directly attack. And here we are again at a time when the Russian Empire, I'll call it that just for the sake of drama, has decided that Ukraine, an independent nation, though Russia chooses not to recognize it, should be part of their empire. And they have invaded, and they have defied the West, and they have used gas, and they have used missiles, they have bombed civilian populations, they have targeted civilian populations. Where they've been met in the field by the Ukrainian army, they have been often defeated, by the way. So they've gone instead, and this has been from the beginning, after civilians. And there are millions of refugees. There are going to be hundreds of thousands dead if this thing should stop now, much less if it stops down the road. And the question I want to ask is a disturbing one. Do we not need to be willing for World War III to break out if that is the price of halting evil? Now, again, I'm not a guy who wants to stand on the rubble of Western civilization and say, I told you so, as many people seem to want to do. And I don't want war. I'm not a warmonger. I don't want to see war break out. I don't want to see violence. I'm aware that there are evils happening on the globe somewhere all the time. Big international evil issues, big conflicts, genocides happening all the time. I'm not saying the whole world should declare a world war in the face of all of those as much as we should try to do the good that we can do. But when you have a nation like Russia, the size that it is and as militarized as it is, and it clearly intends not only to move into Ukraine, but move into Eastern Europe, it intends to dominate, it intends to have an alliance with China, another massive nation, highly militarized. Can we allow this kind of evil, this kind of covenant of evil to dominate our world? And here we are with Western politicians, recently many of them stepping up. Germany is stepping up beautifully. Britain is stepping up beautifully. One of the moments I've been most proud. I'm an Anglophile by belief and training, and when I saw Boris Johnson walking the streets of Kyiv with Volodymyr Zelensky, I got to tell you, that was a proud moment for me, because I am used to, in my lifetime, Western leaders being pretty cowardly, quite frankly. You understand what I mean, sitting in their comfortable offices and wringing their hands and wondering if they should save lives somewhere in the world, and usually not. And Boris Johnson, again I say, Churchill-like, goes right into Kyiv, though the Russians are near and assassins are in Kyiv. They know this. And he walks the streets with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. That was a proud moment for me. So many of them are stepping up, but we're coming late to the party, and we're still dithering. The United States has opposed Poland giving slightly outdated airplanes to Ukraine because they're afraid that if a NATO country steps up to oppose Russia, we'll somehow end up in World War III. Well, I don't want World War III. I don't want to see another person die in this stupid, evil war. I want to see a coup that removes Vladimir Putin. I want to see Russia apologize. I want to see Russia help Ukraine rebuild as an independent nation. That's what I want to see. And the rest of the world help. But if that doesn't happen, what has to be in the souls of the West is a resolve that is willing to go as far as a broadened war. You cannot remove the option of greater violence. You cannot retreat from the possibility that it might expand. We didn't start this war. We didn't pick this fight. We didn't target civilians. We didn't choose to say the ridiculous things they're saying in Moscow. But we certainly have to be willing to answer evil when it arises on this scale. So I'm saying something radical and something that will disturb many of you listening. And by the way, it disturbs me. But the lesson of history is if you aren't at least willing to answer evil when it arises and encroaches, then you encourage a greater evil. And the greater evil that could come from this Russia-Ukrainian war could be massive. The nations surrounding Russia are not able to withstand it. If Vladimir Putin is wanting to build some neo-Russian empire, he can dominate a huge amount of territory, particularly if he's backed by China. The West must be resolved, not just mounting up in some kind of faux anger, but must be ready to counter it. By the way, Russia is highly militarized, and there's no question about it, but Russia's population is half of the United States. Its military is smaller than the United States. What's really holding us hostage is the Russian nuclear arsenal. And we may see nuclear weapons fired in our generation. We may see that. But we can't be cowed by that. We need to be wise. We need to be measured. But we can't simply back away. We can't simply wring our hands and serve up Ukraine and serve up Crimea and serve up that part of the world. We've seen what happens already. Because while history doesn't repeat itself, it does rhyme. And it is rhyming now. So this is the horrible thing I'm saying, but I'm saying it because we have to have a level of resolve where we ignore the lessons of our faith, we ignore the lessons of history, and we invite greater evils in our time.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular global speaker, and senior fellow for public leadership at Palm Beach Atlantic University. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.